Hello everyone, my name is Holly Berman and I'm going to be speaking to you about the types of power and authority. First up, let's talk about Max Weber. Born April 21st, 1864, died June 14th, 1920. Max Weber was a German sociologist and political economist. He was well known for his theories on predominant religions of his time and on economic development. Major contributions were made to the studies of management and bureaucracy, as noted in our textbook. His work also influenced many sociological theories, as also mentioned in our textbook. According to Weber, authority is the right and power to enforce laws, exact obedience, command, determine, or judge. Weber also equated authority with legitimized power, which will be discussed later on in this slideshow. First up, let's discuss the three types of authority. The first is traditional, which is the power held by royalty or a head of state, or power that is vested with a sense of tradition and history. The second is charismatic, which is power based on the personal charm and leadership qualities of the individual. The third is legal, which is power based in laws and rules that are generally accepted. Next up is the discussion of power, but first I'll discuss who French and Raven are. John French and Bertram Raven were social psychologists that identified the 5 bases of power in studies they conducted in 1959. The next 2 slides will discuss these types of power. The first type of power is reward, which is the perception that the power holder can give some kind of reward. A problem that could arise with this type of power is that a supervisor may not have as much control over a reward as is needed. For example, some supervisors may not have complete control over salary increases. This could lead to a decrease in your perceived level of power. Examples in the criminal justice field may include an officer's decision not to arrest, a prosecutor that declines to prosecute, and sentence reductions granted by a judge. The second type of power is coercive, which is the perception that the power holder can use force to get what they want. Now, this includes both the threat of force and the actual use of force to gain compliance. A potential problem with coercive power is that it has great potential to be abused. Threats such as being fired may not be very beneficial in the workplace. The third type of power is legitimate. Legitimate power is the perception that the power holder has legal or official status. Examples include presidents, prime ministers, and monarchs. Within the criminal justice field, this includes officers, attorneys, counselors, work supervisors, or healthcare providers. The next type of power is referent, which is the power that the perception that the power holder is a reference for the power recipient. This provides motivation and empowers the workers because they're looked upon as a model for the power recipient. In this case, the power holder is typically liked and respected, which is how they are given the power. Those who look up to them tend to follow them. A problem that may arise is that not all people who are well liked deserve this power status. A person that is well liked but lacks integrity should not be followed, especially in the criminal justice field. The final type of power is expert power, which is the perception that the power holder has qualifications that confer this status. The power holder has experience or knowledge that qualifies them to have that status. Next up is the Hepburn study and results. So John R. Hepburn in 1985 conducted a study on correctional officers of their power in coercive organizations. So correctional officers in 5 prisons in 4 different states were given questionnaires that included questions about power, their individual background, and also their attitudes towards work. The results brought about a ranking of 1 through 5 of the levels of power. First is the power that the officers felt was most powerful, and last is the least powerful. So they ranked them as legitimate, expert, referent, coercive, and reward being last. Now, this is not representative of the entire criminal justice field. However, it did bring about some interesting results. So legitimate was ranked the highest, and most officers thought inmates did what they otherwise would not do because of legitimate power. Now, they also found that more experience, the officers were more likely to rank expert as the number 1 power and not legitimacy. That was actually ranked much lower. They also found that there was little effect with education, with officer contact with inmates, or their attitudes towards work. overall and in conclusion, it's important for managers to pay attention to power and authority in their workplace because socialization, stressors, and the job roles shape how the power is wielded. It's important for them to pay attention to this because it could lead to an abuse of power, which they would want to avoid in their workplace. That is it. I hope everyone has a good weekend.